So let's start with Christian Koloko, the 7-foot center from Arizona. He was a 3-year player at Arizona, is coming out as a junior. He's 22 years old at the draft. Like I said, he's 7 feet tall. He has a 7'5" wingspan, 9'5" standing reach. That wingspan 7'5" is the second longest that they recorded at the combine. 9'5" standing reach was the third highest that they recorded at the combine. He's 221 pounds, which is a big deal. I'll talk about that in a second. The one sentence from the Ringer said he's a Cameroonian big man who emerged this year as one of college's best rim protectors and finishers, though he must get stronger to excel in the NBA. His strengths: he's a great finisher, roller. He grabbed a ton of dunks and alley-oops in college. He has good hands. He's a pretty decent offensive rebounder. I wouldn't say great offensive rebounder, but he is going to get offensive rebounds just because of the standing reach and how tall he is in the position he can get. And he has a pretty decent looking jumper on offense. Like, he hit 72% of his free throws his last year at Arizona. He hit a couple of free throw line jumpers, and the jumper just looks pretty solid. On defense, he was the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. He was all defensive team. He's a really great shot blocker and help defense. He's also mobile. This is huge for us and for the Mavericks. Mobile, he switched on to guards a lot. He did really well in college in the drop as well. And then he's added 15 pounds since his freshman year. That's a huge thing. He's 221 pounds now. That's the big thing for him, is can he bulk up and stick with guys in the post? But he became a better post defender. And a couple of weaknesses. I mean, the weaknesses just stand out with him. Raw, he's a prospect. He only started playing basketball at age 15, so it's only been 7 years for him that he's been actually playing real organized basketball, coming over from Cameroon. And he said himself, I haven't been playing basketball that long. I played a couple times before that, but really when it was 15, I was when I really started. And then he kind of developed in college. So he's not this really experienced player, even though he's a 3-year player coming out of college. He played only 200 minutes his first year, 450 minutes his second year. And then finally his junior years when he really came on strong and played over 900 minutes in college. And so just the rawness of him and trying to figure out exactly how he'll fit in the NBA. But those are his strengths and his weaknesses.
Yeah. You said it, I was going to add there that, not really add, but build him on he's still developing, right? He's this 7-footer that, like you said, he started off playing soccer in Cameroon, and he's a big soccer guy. Watching, some videos of him just doing interviews and stuff with Arizona, and just, seeing some footage of him playing soccer, it's dude, you don't see many 7-footers that can, dribble a basketball or a soccer ball like that.
Yeah, but you know who did that is Joel Embiid and Hakeem Olajuwon, right? Those guys came over and had the soccer footwork skills first, and that works really well for guys on the next level.
Yeah, so, like you said, he's a 7-footer, and he plays the style of what he could be as a center is, when you start looking at NBA comps, you start looking at what he could be in the NBA, what he's good at is exactly kind of what Dallas defines their bigs as. And, it's wild because he's a good rim roller. He has good numbers with that, points per possession, Arizona, all this stuff, but he didn't really do it a ton at Arizona. When you look at his breakdown of offensive possessions on Synergy, post up was 29%, almost 30% of his offensive possessions were post ups.
Dang.
And now he's not going to come into the league and be a post up guy. Dallas is going to run freaking plays for him in the post, but we've also seen whenever you don't have touch around the basket, how it does hinder you. Rudy Gobert, if you can't do any type of little jump hook or something like that, and he has that, he has touch around the basket. Koloko does. So, but as the roll man in a pick and roll, it was only 16% of his offensive possessions last year. He only had 63 possessions in which he was the roll man in that pick and roll. Now he was really good at it. So when you look at centers, when I'm looking at centers in this draft, that if Dallas does choose to go big at the 26th pick where they move around, if they do take a guy and they take a big, it's most likely going to be a guy who can play in the pick and roll with Luka or do the pick and roll with Jalen Brunson in the second unit or something like that. And Koloko is one of those dudes that he can play. He has the size. He can protect the paint, like you said. He can switch out on the perimeter, like you said. And he can also roll to the basket. Weaknesses, like you were saying, though, he's just not a pick and pop guy. He's not going to shoot the three. Now, you watch yet. Now, he is a clutch client, and I watched a little bit of his, anytime you watch a pre-draft workout, and you're like, all right, let's go. They had him doing, pick and pops. He was shooting, pretty far out threes at the Clutch Pro Day and all of that.
Did it look like Willie Cauley-Stein's pick and pops in his threes?
It wasn't for Instagram. No, it actually was. But no, that's his thing. It's like, you're not giving it to him. He doesn't really handle the ball that well. He's still raw, still developing that. But what you're asking of your center guy, what Dallas would ask from, the 5 spot is, can you set a pick and roll to the basket? Yeah. Can you do a little short roll? If you do get around the basket, can you, at least have some touch? Can you protect the paint? Can you switch? He can do all those things.
Yeah, that's basically like rim rolling center that can also defend the rim really well, defend in space. Like that's sort of his whole thing. Availability. What we do when we do availability is I'll go through Raphael's big board from Locked On NBA big board. I'll go for the Ringers big board, ESPN's big board with Jonathan Gavoni, and then the Athletic with Sam Vecini. I think those are 4 guys that I really respect when it comes to the draft. Raphael had him at 27 on his big board. The Ringer had him 28th in their latest mock. ESPN in their mock, which came right after the lottery, they had him 42nd to the Knicks. So he's got a big range here. And then the Athletic, Sam Vecini had him at 34 to OKC. So a big range for Christian Koloko, but he should be there for the Mavericks at 26 if they want to get him. The ceiling and the floor for him, I could see him as an all-defensive team player. Like, get to a point where he's bulked up a little bit more. He's ready to take the pounding down low, and he's just blocking everything in sight, and he can also step out. Like, Robert Williams just made an all-defensive team. I could see Christian Koloko, if he hits and makes it in the NBA, I could see him on an all-defensive team. The floor for him, I could see him out of the league. Like, if he just can't add enough, if he's, if the length and stuff just isn't enough, sometimes that just doesn't, the tools sometimes aren't enough for NBA players. And you have to have a little bit more. And if he doesn't have that, then I could see him out of the league.
Yeah, I just want to see how he develops. I think the shot means so much, because if you can't, shoot a little bit, if you can't do the pick and pop, if you can't be Brook Lopez, like I wrote down, I was trying to, we always do like comps and, the fun stuff of draft, scouting or whatever it is. And I put Brook Lopez if you broke his shooting hand. And because like he's not just a rim roller in the sense of, Capella or Rob Williams. Like, I wrote their names down, but they're not doing jump hooks over their right shoulder either, or their left shoulder. Brook Lopez can, but Koloko can't shoot a 3 like Brook Lopez either. So it's kind of this in between of like, hey, you can run to the basket. He can defend the paint, but he also has some touch too in the post that he's probably not going to utilize a ton. So that's like Serge Ibaka is another name too, where like, could he be in Ibaka a little bit taller? Yeah. Serge Ibaka in that, like you said, he has 7'5" wingspan. The only other guy at the combine was Mark Williams, who had a longer wingspan than that. But I mean, as far as his fit in the rotation, like Dallas, if they're going to add a big, is he, I don't know if you're walking in next season saying, hey, Christian Koloko is our answer. That exit interview we did, how we needed a guy down low, we just drafted Koloko. I think he would be fun to add to the rotation as far as like a bullpen rotation to the center thing and see how he develops, because I think he is kind of raw. I think he has a high upside of, could he be a Clint Capella one day? I think he could.
Yeah, my whole why the Mavs should take him is you bet on the tools. Like, you bet on all the tools that he has to translate in the NBA, a mobile rim rolling center that can defend well at the rim at a pretty elite level, and then defend in space as well. But my reason why the Mavs shouldn't take him is too raw and too project-y. Like, he's just too much of a project for the Mavs to wait 2, 3, 4 years for him to really become the NBA player that they want and then excel on defense. That's what they need. They need somebody to excel on defense right now. And I don't know if the Mavs want to wait on that. If they don't want to wait on that, then I wouldn't take Christian Koloko right now, right? Because I think it might take a little bit. But with any of these players, you're going to have to wait. Like, even Chet Holmgren, you're going to have to wait for him to try and figure it out in the NBA, probably for, at least a year or two to try and bulk up or to get in the right shape and all that. But yeah, so it's a really fascinating thing with him, because if Arizona didn't use him the right way, like I was talking to Richard Mavs Draft, who was on the show last week, and he said, yeah, I don't know if Arizona used him the right way, and I don't know if Sean Miller, the coach at Arizona, was great for him. And so if that's the case and the Mavs see him and they can watch more of the film than I could and say, oh, we can use this guy in the right way and he's ready. He's got the instincts and the tools right now to be really impactful in our defense in the NBA, then, I mean, maybe they know more about that than I do at this point. But for me, he's just a little too raw.
Well, if you're big and you're great at rolling to the rim and doing the pick and roll, then you want to go play with Luka Doncic. Like you're seeing what Dwight. I mean, we've joked about free agents wanting to do that or other players in the league. But like if you're a big in the draft class saying, I'm better than Dwight Powell, like it's like put me in that role. Give me more than 16% of my offensive possessions as the roll man in the pick and roll playing with Luka Doncic. Then I think Luka could bring the best out of him. I think my question is why they shouldn't is. Whoever they draft, if they draft somebody, I want them to be able to play in the playoffs. Like moving forward, I want them to have some type of role. And your question is, if you're going to take a big, which I feel like you should swing for wings, but if you're going to take a big, I want you to be confident that he can log some minutes off the bench for you in the playoffs. Yes. I just don't know. I don't know if I'm like really confident saying, hey, Koloko's giving me, 12 to 15 minutes off the bench in year one.
He's not giving me Brandon Clark vibes. We're like, oh, that guy can come out and play. Like right away,
Yeah, but I like him. I don't want to seem like, hey, we're kind of like, I don't know.
Just because we ended on why the Mavs shouldn't take him, right? The reason why they should is bet on the tools, bet on all that stuff. Like if he hits, if he hits, this is the perfect center for the Mavericks, right? They want a guy that can roll to the rim really well, that can finish really well, that is flirting with a jumper and can hit some like mid-range stuff and is not going to be terrible on the free throw line. And he can also, get to a point where he's elite defensively in space and at the rim, right? Like that's the reason why. Yeah. And if you want to bet on that, then you take a guy like this. And I think he probably has that more than Mark Williams is probably the best one. And then Chet, obviously, it's like Chet, Mark Williams, and then Christian Koloko probably in this draft as guys that you would take that fit that profile.